Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the final furlongs of day one of Spikes Asia 2016. The happy hour bar opens in about 1 hour's time. We have 2 more seminars to canter through before we get to that point. That's 5:30, and that's right in the middle there, the Spikes Asia bar. At 7 o'clock, the Bates CHI party bus will depart and take you networking after dark. So enjoy that. That's with our friends also at J. Walter Thompson. If you're enjoying what you're seeing, we hope you are. If you find it inspiring, please do tell everybody about it on social media using the hashtag SpikesAsia, unsurprisingly. Now, let's get on to it and talk about embracing innovation. Ask any organization if they embrace innovation, and not a single one will say no. They'd be mad not to want to ride the wave of new ways of working, new technology, or the next disruption. In reality, though, many of the biggest companies are failing to walk the walk, and the creative industry is no different. This next session will look at the 3-year journey taken by TMW Unlimited as they try to change their culture, and they will highlight 5 ways in which they failed to introduce innovative thinking to what can be a very traditional business. Sharing his journey, please welcome now to the stage the head of labs at TMW Unlimited, Mark Curtis.
Thank you very much. Hello there, everybody. Thanks very much for taking time out in what has been an amazing day, very fascinating talks, lots of really great stuff to look at. So I fully appreciate and thank you very much for spending 30 minutes listening to me rabbit on about how not to introduce innovation to a creative agency. Or actually, if I'm being honest, and this is where I smack my microphone many times throughout the talk, how I failed to introduce innovation to our creative agency. Little bit of background about who we are. My boss told me I had to put in some iconic photos of London, so you'll have to excuse the phone boxes, but our agency is based in London. I would argue one of the most innovative cities in the world. I'm not trying to compete with Singapore, obviously, but you know, we have a thriving startup community. Many of them then go on, obviously, to make their money in other countries, but we certainly are able to start startups in our city. And within London, our agency is based in Soho, which is, many would say, the creative hub of London. So we're very much in the heart of one of the most innovative cities, in one of the most creative areas in London. Bit of background about me. I've had what you would probably term a portfolio career. So I started off as a nurse, actually, in an intensive care ward in St. Thomas's, which is a London hospital. After 10 years of that, I got itchy feet and decided I need to take a new direction. So I did a degree in digital technology and ended up working as a developer. And after a couple of years of that, decided to start my own business. 6 years later, I decided it was time to get back into big agency life where all the fun was, and it was a little bit easier to make money, and convinced TMW that they needed an innovation lab, and that's where I am now. We got some amazing clients. We work for Canon, Nissan, Infinity, HSBC, Sony, Danone, Unilever, all the big names. So a really exciting place to work with some really fantastic opportunities to do some really great work, and some very innovative clients as well. Firstly, though, very briefly, innovation. It's a really overused word. Personally, I struggle with it. I don't like using it. However, unfortunately, there's literally no way of talking about innovation without repeatedly using the word over and over and over again. So I apologize in advance. You're probably going to hear it an awful lot throughout this presentation. Buckle up. There's quite a few instances of it. What is innovation? See, told you. Basically, whenever you're looking at an established way of working or examining a system that is ripe for change and you're trying to unpick it, change it, make it better, make it more efficient, you are innovating. If you're going against the status quo, that is innovation. And sponsorship of innovation isn't particularly new. The Royal Society, set up in 1660, had the stated ambition of promoting what they term natural knowledge, which was effectively their way of talking about innovation. And really, actually, innovation is only a term we've been applying to new thinking for the last few years. You had people like James Cook, that's not James Cook, that's Jefferson, but they sponsored people like James Cook to go off and explore Tahiti and do other scientific expeditions. And they also sponsor people like Jefferson to do his experiments with lightning and kites. And we all know how that ended up. For me, innovation is about solving problems in new ways. Innovation doesn't happen in a vacuum. The key difference between creativity and innovation is that with our creatives in our agency, by and large, they're often asked to go away and come up with some amazing ideas to solve a single problem. And that single problem is quite often, how can we get our clients' brands cut through? How can we get people buying their stuff? Innovation is a little bit different because you're actually looking at solving a wide range of problems. There's a need there. Without need, that's the kind of the fuel for innovators, for entrepreneurs. Not saying that all these needs are known needs, if you'll excuse the too many N's in that sentence, but many innovators are actually setting out to uncover new and unknown needs in advance and then working to solve them. So innovation is all around solving needs, and it's all about making things better or more efficient or more effective. The key difference then is between creativity and innovation is execution. Without execution, without solving that need, solving that problem, creativity without execution is effectively just good design. It also means that within the space of innovation, creative thinking is not just the preserve of the creative industries. Innovation and creativity can come from literally anywhere. Anybody can do it. Now, if I was to ask a room full of people if they felt that innovation was a good idea, I would hope that everybody would put their hands up. Nobody's going to sit there and go, no, innovation, not for us. And equally, if you're in a room full of people and I ask everybody to put their hands up if they consider themselves to be innovative, then I would expect pretty much everybody to put their hands up. Nobody's going to identify as being, yeah, no, I'm not creative, I'm not innovative. So if everybody is pro-innovation, and most people consider themselves to be fairly innovative, why is innovation so hard? We've had directors of innovation, we've had heads of lab, we've had directors of unlimited thinking, I think was one of our favorite titles. We work in an industry that thrives on creativity, the very lifeblood of innovation, and yet we've found the journey to be extremely fraught. Why is this? And actually, how can we expect our clients and the other big organizations to do it if even we can't do it? There's a really interesting report by McKinsey a year or so ago that asked C-level executives whether or not they felt that innovation was important or critical for their business. 84 of them said, yes, absolutely. And 80% of them said that they felt that their business models would be at risk if they didn't innovate. And yet, only 6% of those same people that when asked felt that their companies were doing it effectively. So clearly there's a huge disconnect between the desire for innovation and people actually putting it into action. Now, my theory on this, and it's very much based on the companies that we work with in the UK, I can't speak for APAC, obviously, is that if you look at any big organization, quite often you have at the very top the C-suite, your chief execs and your CTOs, and they have this real stated ambition for innovation. They want their companies to innovate. They'll make grand statements about fail fast, test and learn. And at the bottom, you've got this amazingly passionate, energetic, and creative graduates coming up, new employers, often attracted to the company by the big stated ambitions by the C-suite people. And then you've got the middle, the scared middle, as I call them. Now, they're no less creative and they're no less innovative, but what they are is scared. They're scared of losing their jobs. Nobody wants to be, doesn't matter what your chief exec tells you, nobody wants to be the person who was in charge of that project when it failed. So as much as they want to see their company improve and as much as they believe in what they're being told by their bosses, they don't want to be the ones to be in charge of that project that didn't succeed. So on to the embarrassing bit. How did I fail? How did I fail to introduce innovation to our agency? And I should probably talk a little bit about failure first, very briefly. My wife, who I went through this presentation with shortly before I came, yes, I have that kind of marriage, said that it was a little bit negative, and I should probably explain why failure is a good thing. Well, failure is a good thing. Failure enables us to learn. It enables us to grow. It enables us to validate some of the assumptions that we had about the thing that we were trying to do. And without failure, often, it's very difficult to move on. So I see this as hugely positive, and I also think that the failures that I've identified have led on to some much better thinking with our agency. So I'm going to try and rattle through them fairly quickly. First of all, I created a department of innovation. Now, that sounds like a good idea. You want to introduce innovation to your agency. So you create a department to do it. Unfortunately, all it does is say, here's a bubble, and we put all the innovative stuff in it, and everybody outside that bubble can't touch it. At best, you're effectively isolating all the innovative people in your agency, and you're disenfranchising somebody outside of it. What's the solution? Well, organizations need leaders of innovation. They don't need departments of innovation. If you've got leaders, you can start to work on definitions. What is innovation to your company? You can define targets. Targets are really important because without targets, you can't measure your success. You can start mentoring people. You can start putting tools and products around what you're doing as well, which makes it very easy for your clients to come to terms with what it is you're doing, and it gives them something to hook into. And it also, hopefully, generates a little bit of revenue for your company as well. And ultimately, if you create leaders, you can also create people who are empowered to cut through some of the bureaucracy that exists in your company. And I'll touch on that in a little bit more detail in a couple of seconds. But you know, it all goes down to the fact, and this will be a recurring theme throughout this presentation, that if you're not empowering people, if you're not giving people permission at all levels in your company, and this is why you need to create leaders throughout your organization, then it's very difficult to change the culture. Second thing I did was I let process kill ideas. Now, I think this is something that pretty much any company, any agency that I've spoken to has had. You come up with a brilliant solution, a brilliant piece of creativity, and you want to take it to your clients. It's going to absolutely rock their world. So what do? You take it to your senior board sponsor in the company, and you say, I've got this great idea, I've got this great piece of creativity or innovation, I'm going to take it to our clients. They're going to love it. He says, absolutely, how much is it going to cost? And that's not an unreasonable question. Things cost money, and we're in the business of making money after all. And unless you're doing it purely to win an award at Cannes, and there are agencies out there who do that, not us, but you know, it happens. Unless you're in that business, you want your client to pay, and I don't think that's an unreasonable expectation. So your board sponsor tells you to go down and talk to client services, who sit down and they say, well, this is a brilliant idea. We really love it. Let's get some people in the room and we can start discussing how much that's going to cost. So they invite project management in, creative services, get the techies in. Well, you obviously want the QA team as well, because obviously everything has to be perfect when it goes out. And before long, your neat little idea, which was going to take a couple of weeks to roll out and really going to rock somebody's world, has turned into a 6-month enterprise-level initiative, which is probably going to cost upwards of £250,000. And your client says, no, I'm not going to spend that money. Why would I? It's an unproven thing. And they walk away. And you walk away from the meeting thinking, well, they're not very innovative, are they? Except, of course, it's not their fault. You've just presented them with a £250,000 project with no guarantee of success. They're scared. Or worse than that, you bring in a startup. And this startup might be the next big disruption that's going to change everything in their industry. And you take it to the client and they say, that's absolutely brilliant. Can you show me proof that it works? Give me a case study. And of course, that's not going to happen because they're a startup. By definition, they haven't got any proof that what they do works. They're trying to disrupt. But somehow you get through that, and then they introduce your startup to the procurement processes. And if anybody's ever worked with procurement, you'll know why that's a terrible idea. Procurement and big business are not set up to deal with startups. Startups need 2 weeks payment, not 90 days payment. You know, these guys are often operating on a shoestring budget, very, very lean, and trying to interface with a large corporation is enough to kill them. And if they haven't run away after all of that, and frankly they should have done, they get introduced to the global team, because there's nothing big companies like more than saying, how can we scale it globally? And really things will start to unravel after that. I rarely see anything good coming from those kind of conversations. Startups are not set up for scale, not off the bat anyway. So it's all about encouraging behaviors, not processes. And it's all about mitigating risk, or at least educating your clients in ways to working which will make it easier for them and less risky. Educate your agency and your clients about the idea of pilots, test and learn. Start using agile methodology, MVP, sprints, fast betas, that kind of stuff. Because if you couch things in terms of, we'll do a 1-week sprint, we'll see where we are, we'll do another 1-week sprint, we'll see where we are, we'll do an MVP, we'll test, etc., your client is never having to buy into the fact that they're spending £250,000. They're only spending small chunks of money, and their risk is very, very limited. And they're confident that at any point they can step off that train and everything will be okay. They won't have wasted any money. The other thing you can do is you can build an agile project initiation team. Now, these teams are great because what they do is they can get the ball rolling before everybody else has really noticed that there's a project even beginning. So those big meetings where people start chucking in huge amounts of budget because they want to make sure that their bit of the process is protected, they don't even get a look in. This project initiation team can run in, get the project started, and before you know where you are, you've got an MVP that you can use to secure more budget and also get buy-in from the rest of the organization. And build in the possibility of failure, especially with your clients, but talk about smart failure. Talk about what you can learn when the thing goes wrong, what you can learn when you give it to users and they don't like it. So it's not about chucking out process, it's about embracing the right kind of process. And there are 5 characteristics of people within your organization that you should really look to promote. First is an opportunistic mindset. This is a way of looking at things where you can see the opportunity and you can use it quickly. The old trope that entrepreneurs and innovators drop out of university is largely not true. For the vast majority of people who are innovating, they've actually got some formal training, education, or they're experts in their field, and that helps people to filter out some of the irrelevant and focus on the relevant ideas that they should be working on. You want proactive people, people who can see that opportunity and then run with it and get things done quickly. But you also need people who have a healthy dose of prudence, because you've got to know when to stop. And then finally, you need people with social capital, and this applies both externally and internally. So you want people who can really mobilize their connections within the organization and externally outside the organization, especially when you're talking startups, to get things done. Number 3, and this is a particular bête noire of mine, beauty parades. I put on beauty parades. There's a real shortcut to introducing innovation to an agency, and that's startups. So what you do is you get a bunch of startups in, 6 of them, you get your clients into a meeting, you get them to pitch their ideas for 10 minutes each, and it's wonderful. The client is really happy because they've touched the magic innovation person. You're happy because you sprinkled that magic dust of innovation onto the relationship. But what about the startup? What happens to them? Well, by and large, very little, other than the fact that they've wasted a couple of days sweating out a presentation that they think is going to change the way they work. It's going to give them that vital piece of revenue that they need. But I can guarantee you the hit rate is incredibly low, because what will generally happen is, because you're not putting out a fire on the desk of your client or your client services person, they will forget what they've seen within a couple of weeks. It doesn't work, and all it does is give your organization a reputation for being exploitative. I know, because I've actually done it with the best will in the world. I thought I was doing the right thing, and I can guarantee as well that almost every big agency out there is doing something similar. Don't be a startup tourist. Thank you. Put in as much into the startup community as you want to get out. Align your clients' challenges to the possible solutions in advance. And that can quite often mean working with the startups before you've even spoken to the client to help the client define what their challenges are. Because if you know what's out there already in the startup world, that will give you an indication of what some of the challenges are for your clients. Make yourself startup friendly. Mentor, judge, facilitate connections without the expectation of reward, i.e. network. Run workshops and events that provide value for everyone. And this is the real key thing here, for me anyway. If you're not providing a true value exchange with the startups that you want to work with, then you're not doing anybody any good. So this is the question you need to ask yourself before you have any contact with the startup community. Are they getting as much from me as I want to get out from them? Very important. Number 4, I expected people to come to me. So I had this vision of sitting around and I'd have creatives at my feet lapping up my wonderful words of innovative inspiration. Of course, that's not the case. What will generally happen is I'll get a call the day before a pitch to be asked if I could provide a slide with 5 things in the world of innovation which will really bring the pitch to life and let the client know that we're an innovative company. And clearly that's not the right way around. All it does is it pigeonholes innovation as that bit you put at the end of a presentation. It might work, it might do some good to give a bit of excitement in a dry pitch, but frankly we should be looking at making our pitches better, not adding in a fun bit at the end. And if you're not being called at the end, you're being called at the beginning. And although that doesn't sound as bad, it can be. You've been asked to bring along 5 innovations in the world of X, to give the creative something as a thought starter so they can go off and come up with some creative genius. Like I say, it sounds better, but it's not really. It's just a token nod towards innovation that creatives will listen politely, nod their heads, and then go away and do whatever they were going to do in the first place. If you make innovation about one person, you're basically telling that team that they can't do it, which goes back to this disenfranchisement thing. I believe that innovation happens at the interface between disciplines. So it's about creating an atmosphere of inclusion. It goes back to using these creative, innovative leaders as well. Embed innovative thinking into the planning process. That really helps, because if you've got it in the planning process, it means it's something that's embedded in the insight and also, the idea that the creatives are trying to solve. Also remember, innovative thinking and entrepreneurialism can be taught. You can run training courses on this. So why not train people in your organization and your creatives to think innovatively, not just creatively? Get them thinking about execution as well. And make delivering innovation a target for every bit of your organization. If you've got targets, you can measure against it, and then it's very easy to find out the bits of your organization that are not delivering. And finally, number 5, I started with a single approach. Turns out that people in our agency and also all of our clients are at different stages in this journey. Some of them have already got innovation labs, some of them have got ventures set up, some of them really want to do all this stuff, but they can't because of the regulations that govern their industry. And I'm thinking the banking sector is a really good example of that. They're very much tied up by the regulation that prevents them from doing anything particularly fast-moving. When we started labs, we saw it very much as a way of exploring the opportunities of new technology. We associated innovation with new tech, and that's still true to a degree. New tech will come along, and it needs to be understood. And having a team who can do it, well, that's important. Labs is a great place to have as a physical space in an agency. It's pointable. You can show clients it as you walk around, but it's a double-edged sword. So trying to engage with the agency, with your clients, with a single articulation of what you can do just doesn't work. You need to be more flexible. Basically, if you show somebody a lab, they'll just go, great, that's where all the fun stuff happens, and they'll file it as interesting but largely not relevant. So you need to be more flexible. I would say you need to start with a portfolio approach to innovation. The labs area is great for techies to play with and to point out to clients, but you need to develop relationships with other bits of your client's world as well. So whilst you can show it to people as you're walking around, it's also important to start using the marketing bit of your client's world as a doorway to start talking to other bits like HR and learning and development. You'd be amazed at some of the budgets you can unlock when you get beyond the marketing teams. Put your money where your mouth is. Develop a product. We did it. We ran an internal accelerator, and that resulted with a product called Proximity. I urge you all to look it up online. It's a wearable device that helps sufferers of Alzheimer's and dementia not wander too far from their carers. And we've learned so much by getting that product to market, and it is now in second round funding, I think, with Indiegogo. So we're doing very well with that. Also, consider a ventures proposition. It's not for everyone. But again, you'll learn loads, and if you've got skin in the game, I think it's much easier to talk about this stuff, and your clients will take you way more seriously. And finally, understand that your clients have different types of innovation needs. They need product innovation, service innovation, business innovation. There's no reason why you can't be answering all of these different challenges in different ways. Change like this is like fitness. This is Mo Farah, probably the greatest British athlete, maybe even the world's greatest athlete at the moment. He's always working towards something. When he ran at the Olympics this year, he didn't think, well, that's it, done now, finished. He was like, right, what am I going to do next? I'm going to get into road racing. And he'll probably kill it in marathon racing. And when he's done that, he'll probably go into something else. The thing is, he will always be looking to improve. And I think that's the thing with innovation. You're never finished. You've always got to look for improvements. And these are the 4 things that we feel that innovative agencies really need to keep working on. You need to take a different view of the world. You need to value systemic innovation, which means not just looking at the solutions, but challenging the way we even ask the questions. You need to be able to move fast and sidestep that bureaucracy, embracing that smart failure, and basically cutting through some of the red tape which will prevent you from getting stuff done. You need to be collaborative, and that works inside the agency and also outside the agency. Put in as much as you want to get out. And then finally, like I said, you need to be never satisfied, always looking for the next big thing, looking to know how you can change it. So when when you finally get all these plans in action and you're happy that you're actually making revenue through your innovation proposition, that's when you need to look at it and think, we cannot sit still. We need to reinvent. We need to find new ways of working. So it's led us to this, and this is the way that we position ourselves now. We enable the cultural change necessary to unlock innovative thinking, both for ourselves and our clients. It enables us to talk about technology, trends, new stuff, but it also enables us to bring up the products that we've created to support this ambition. And these range from workshops to introduce clients to new tech. We run them to educate staff and clients alike, really. So, and I'm doing a thing tomorrow here on how to program an Arduino, which will be fascinating. It's about interacting with startups and facilitating relationships between startups and brands, but doing it in a way that provides real value exchange and mutually beneficial relationships. And then also it enables us to talk about some of the really big stuff that we want to do. So having run a successful accelerator internally and having built up loads and loads of contacts in the accelerator world, especially in London, where, as I say, there's a huge network of accelerators, that's something that we're now packaging up and taking to our clients. So basically changing their culture of innovation by helping them run their own accelerators in their own organizations. Something which I feel is going to be hugely beneficial and genuinely support that ambition that their C-level people have about enabling innovation across their whole network. Well, you'll be pleased to know I got to the end with 4 minutes to spare. Thank you so much for taking time to listen to me ramble on today. It's been an absolute pleasure to be here. I'll be around later, and I'm on Twitter if anybody has any questions or wants to reach out to me. Thank you very much.
Mark Curtis from TMW Unlimited. Many thanks indeed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to Mark for sharing with us his failures so that we can all learn from them. Thank you very much indeed.